We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder, what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
Yay, dance party. It is nice, eh? Oh, my first day. Very Canadian.
There you go.
Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Today is June 5th, 2022. You are watching the Atheist Experience, one of the shows put on by the atheist community of Austin, which is an organization based in Austin, Texas, that is a 501c3 dedicated to the promotion of positive atheism and the separation of religion and government. I am Shannon Q, your host for today, and I am joined by Forrest Valkai.
Hi.
I'm so excited. Evidently,
Thank you for having me.
this combination was requested quite a bit. Evidently, people want to
Yes.
see what's going to happen with you and I together.
It's
And
gonna
we're
be a
both
good
in very
show
weird
tonight.
moods. We're both in very
Just
weird
watch
moods.
this be just like the most boring show. We get all crap callers. You and I are just tired by the end of it.
I know.
And,
I'm already emotionally exhausted, to be fair, but I have tea, so everything is going to improve dramatically.
I don't hear it. I live in America. You don't know what emotional exhaustion is. All right, it's awful here.
I mean, that's valid. That's valid. I'm Canadian. What do I know about exhaustion? Yeah, no, that's
Tell
fair.
me more with your healthcare and your gun control.
I know. I'll have to go to the doctor to get my feelings checked later, just to
Yeah,
see.
yeah. That must be
To
nice.
cope with this conversation. All right, are you ready to start taking some callers, my guy?
Whatever
I am.
you are.
All right, let's party. Let's start with Anthony. Hello, Anthony. You are on the
Hey.
Atheist Experience. What would you like to talk about today?
Hey,
Hi.
I'd like to make the argument for the existence of God that kind of plays off the theme that the universe is the body of God.
Okay.
Sure.
And I think it's a little more sophisticated than what you usually hear from a scientific standpoint, and it has two parts, which the first part sets up the conclusion. So, all right, here we go. When we look at the human body or the body of a living organism or thing, what is it made up of from a physical standpoint? And the answer at the most basic level is atoms. And of course, there are subatomic particles, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just say atoms. So if you imagine an atom, it's not immediately obvious that if you arrange a bunch of them together into a more complex structure, they'll produce a sentient being that can experience emotions and conscious awareness and such. So complex arrangements of atoms make up things that appear to be more than just the sum of their parts. And going to right to the conclusion, when we ask the question, what is the greater universe made up of? It's made up of star systems and galaxies. And what are star systems? They're basically just bigger versions of atoms. So if you zoom out to the farthest extent of the universe, kind of like how atoms put together create a conscious entity, even though they don't possess that attribute themselves, maybe solar systems, which are kind of just bigger versions of atoms, create a sort of universe conscious or God consciousness that comes from solar systems adding up to something that's more than just the sum of their parts. Done.
Okay. So, I see where you're going with that. I see I was having some audio issues. Can you hear me properly?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I just saw some people in the chat saying that my mic was kind of low, so I just want to make sure. First of all, yeah, you could say that a star system looks a little bit like an atom, like you have these several electrons going around a central nucleus, but that would just be comparing it to the orbital model of an atom, which is something that Niels Bohr came up with. That isn't actually how atoms look. It's just a way that we describe atoms to make them make more sense. The way the electrons orbit the nucleus of an atom is way, way, way different. Looks absolutely nothing like a star system would look. Also, the key to having an atom, like the point of atoms, is the amount of protons in the nucleus, the different number of protons identify the different species of atoms. So carbon has 6, nitrogen has 7. 7 protons isn't heavy carbon. It is nitrogen. It's going to behave like nitrogen. It's going to bond like nitrogen, which brings me to the next thing. Bonding between atoms is what makes an organism an organism. It's not the atoms that go into a living thing. It's the way those atoms are put together that's important. And chemical bonding only happens because of the valence shell, the outermost electrons being shared between 2 atoms. And I have yet to find a star system that are connected to another star system because the outermost planets share a similar orbit. That doesn't really work. So yeah, at like a very, very surface middle school level, you could say these things look similar, but they are not in any way similar. They don't behave in any way similarly. Like just nothing else about that is any kind of connected. So I would just say that that doesn't really track in any way for me.
I have nothing to contribute.
Can I respond? All right.
By all means, please.
Well,
Yes.
Everything you said is true, and I agree with it. But it's not so much necessary. Well, it is a little bit based on the structure of the atom. I agree. There's not a direct 100%, scale model going on there. But it's the idea that when you look at it from the perspective of an atom, there's really, when you look at it, there's nothing. Hold on, let me see here. Atom has no awareness. It has no ability to conceive of the fact that it's part of something that is aware of its existence. And It creates this conscious entity, whereas if you look at just the atom is not aware, but it creates something that does have consciousness. And I'm just saying that maybe if you, it's premised on the fact that it's not immediately obvious based on what we know about the laws of the universe, the forces of nature, that if you assemble a complex structure from the building blocks of matter, it will give rise to a conscious sentient being. And
I think I'm gonna interrupt you for one second, just because there's something I heard in there that I just want to get clarity on. Initially, you said your argument was that the universe itself was the body of God, and you seem to be positing as evidence that the reason that would be the case is because solar systems are potentially like individual components, like the smallest components, like an atom is. And then going from there to say the reason that you're saying that is because atoms in people can't individually have consciousness. Panpsychists would probably disagree with you, by the way, but they arise consciousness. So I'm not understanding how you can use that as a counter argument when it comes to like the composition of people, but accept it as valid in your argument that the universe itself is the body of God, because wouldn't you encounter the same issue?
Could you? I'm sorry, I'm not actually understanding your question. What are you trying? What's the problem you're identifying again?
The problem I'm identifying is that you're admitting, and like I'd agree with you that there is this hard problem of consciousness, that an individual atom doesn't have a sense of self or identity, but a conglomeration of them in a specific way in an organism does have consciousness. Your initial claim was that the universe itself is the body of God. You seem to be focusing in on that problem here, but not acknowledging that you would also have that problem, right? If the universe is the body of God and you're looking at solar systems as components like individual atoms, you don't have a theory there for their coalescence into a conscious entity either.
Right. It's not so much that we cannot explain. I don't think you have to be able to explain how consciousness arises. It's just the fact. It's just something we observe happening. So we don't know how atoms produce consciousness. At least I don't think we do. In the same way, I can't say, well, here's the laws of the universe that state that the solar systems, when you add them all together, create this giant, super entity or super consciousness that we would call God. But it gives plausibility to the idea because if it happens on the smaller scale, it might happen on the macro scale. And it's not something that proves anything, and it does rely on we'd be ignorant of how it actually all works, but it happens on the small scale, so maybe it happens on the macro scale.
Yeah, the big word there in what you just said is maybe. And like the thing is, comparing the two things that you were just talking about, and you said, well, we can see that consciousness exists. And so even though we don't know the bridge between atoms and consciousness, we at least know that there is one, even if we can't identify it. You're now saying, well, we can draw that same theoretical bridge between solar systems and God, but you don't even have the God on the other side. So with consciousness, we have the atoms and we have consciousness. We know those two things are real. And there we have a theoretical bridge. For what you're saying is we have solar systems, and now we have this God that we don't know that exists, and we have a bridge that we don't know that exists between. Like, you see how that's kind of lacking? Like, there's no reason to ask this question because there's no.
Yeah,
it's kind of falls apart.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's not proof of anything, but it's just it's drawing a sort of an analogy to where we can kind of say, again, like, we're seeing this happen, and it kind of looks like maybe if you scale up to larger versions of what we're seeing on this scale, theoretically, just like an atom isn't aware of it's part of a conscious being, maybe, there's a type of consciousness we don't understand that arises from a conglomeration of galaxies and such. And it's not.
Can you see why that's too many inferences for us, though? Like, so you're making inferences towards something that, like, there's no demonstration that solar systems coalesce into anything resembling an entity. And even if we did accept that to be the case, there is no entity that we can reference and look at and demonstratably ask or ascertain whether or not it has consciousness that is comprised of those solar systems. So it's just maybe an interesting thought experiment, but it kind of stops there. It doesn't have anything to support it other than, speculation, which isn't how I would operate when it comes to whether or not I believe in something, especially something that
it would be like if I said, if there are gnomes living under my house, then their nervous system might be made of cotton candy. That's not an argument for gnomes living under my house, just because I think there might be this connection. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. Yeah, I'm definitely not arguing this as definitive proof, but just something that, if you think about it, and kind of imagine that we're the atoms, we're the things that can't fathom what might be at this massive scale. But all right, just something.
If you think about it, you could write a cool science fiction book, and that would be lovely. But it doesn't really do anything else beyond that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And we have to let you go, Anthony. It was lovely to have a chat with you. Thank you for calling in today.
Thanks for bringing it up, man.
See you later.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
For the nerds in the audience, I have 6.022 times 10 to the 23 reasons why I don't believe in what that person was saying.
We're going to have fun today, Forrest.
Avogadro jokes.
We're going to have fun because I don't understand that reference, but you seem very
enthusiastic. We'll get to it later. We'll talk about it later.
Me and you can talk about it after the show, and you can explain to me why it's funny. All right. So if you like the work that we do here and you want to support us elsewhere, the Atheist Experience is part of the ACA. And there's lots of different ways that you can support the show and the ACA in general. You can become a member for as little as 99 cents a month. You just click the join button that's down below this video, and that'll give you access to special chat emojis. I am several of those emojis, and I look delightful in all of them. The Atheist Experience is just one of the shows that's put on by the ACA. So you have to make sure that you check out all of our other shows as well. You can watch Secular Sexuality on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Truth Wanted is on Fridays at 7 p.m. as well. And then we have all of our Sunday shows. We have Talk Heathen, which airs at 1 p.m. Central. Then the Nonprofits, which is on right before this show at 3 p.m. Central. And another way to support us is to go on Patreon. And you can go on Patreon at tiny.cc/Patreon AXP. And you can support us there. And for all of those who do, thank you very much for supporting our mission. Are you ready for another call, my friend?
Ready whenever you are.
All right, let's do it. Okay. We are going to talk to Noah.
Hey, Noah.
Hi, Noah. You are on the Atheist
Hello.
Experience. What would you like to talk about today?
No change. It's the problem of evil.
Give us your best. Let's see what you got, Noah.
So the main premise is that we would be born in hell. So we're in hell right now.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can't get put in paradise because we'd have no creativity, no love, no pain, no story. So we're put into a temporary place. What?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't realize you were still going. I was just saying that a place with no creativity, no love, no pain, all those things does not sound like paradise to me. That sounds like the
I'm saying
hell
if there was
where all of your personality is gone.
Yeah, there's no counter. I'm saying if there was no counter example, the heaven would be like that. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
So, are you a Christian, Noah? Are you coming at this from a Christian perspective? I just want to kind of know what this is couched within.
No, I'm yes.
Yeah, you're a deist, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't believe in you just believe in some sort of generalized.
I don't believe God.
I couldn't hear you, Noah. You don't believe God what?
Talk to anybody.
Okay.
Talk to anybody. Okay.
Okay. So what brings you to hell is a Christian concept. So I guess I'm just kind of curious, and as is heaven. So I'm just kind of curious why you're proposing those concepts just in general.
So I'm trying to say that the possibility of a perfect, all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God is possible in our current dynamic, because we're in the counterexample where it's a bad place. So we have eternity to spend in some place that is going to be good because we have a counterexample that we know of, and then we're going to laugh at all the dumb stuff we were doing and thinking and acting upon for all of eternity.
So you're saying that Earth is like junior high?
Yeah, Earth is hell.
So what? So Earth is hell. Why does Earth exist? Like, why does this life exist? Why are we not just born into the place where we're laughing at how silly it was that we were going through all of this physical and emotional trauma?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that'd be a lie. You said that so you want a place that we thought we experienced pain and torture and lived to love and hate and.
In your paradigm, go ahead, Forrest. Go ahead.
I was just going to continue on what you were. It sounds like what you're saying is that the entire purpose of our existence at this moment is just to show us what bad things are, so that when we live for eternity without anything bad, we have context. Like the entire point of our existence now is just to give context to eternity.
Yeah, and to live and love and laugh and try to learn. And then for all of eternity, we get to laugh at what we thought was true when it really wasn't true. And it's really, I'm just trying to get at that.
So it's like a practical joke then. The whole point of this is to make us the butt of a joke later on.
That's part of it, yeah.
So when all those children starve to death, 24 to 30,000 children starve to death before they reach the age of 5 every single day, that's the humor that we are going to enjoy later on in paradise.
Well, in paradise, I would think that if the God is perfect, he would react those children into having an eternity where they get to eat all the lovely food they want. But
okay, so it's okay that they starve to death because later on they're going to have some food later.
Yeah, they're going to live life in eternity happy forever.
They just had to die in terror and agony while their parents grieved their horrible, slow, painful death. That was a necessary part of the joke that they're going to love later on. So you realize how disgusting what you're suggesting is, right?
We're in hell right now is my point. So the children who can't have enough food.
What kind of loving God, because you said all loving as a part of your thing, what kind of love do you experience personally, Noah, where you think it would be really cool to hurt someone very, very badly for a very long time so that they can laugh at it later? Is that love that you experience?
Well, they wouldn't laugh at their pain. They would laugh at certain things you believe to be true.
You're
So
making a
there's
lot
like
of assumptions about
comedy.
what people would do as well. Like I, for one, for example, like let's say like the example that Forrest used, if something I'm a mom, if something horrifying happened to my son and he passed away as a result of something like tragic and evil right now, like, even if it is the case that he goes up there and is fine or whatever, I am left here to be tortured and anguished about the fact that that happened. When I get up into this heaven that you're positing, I am not going to go, oh well, golly gee, that was just a silly fun trick that I had to live through to get here now. I guess now I'll be happy. I didn't get to watch my son live a full and happy life. Like, even if I am reunited with him, like, what is going to change in my head that is going to make me suddenly think, well, golly gee, I guess I'll just be happy about this. And especially knowing that I now have other friends and family members that are down there and people I don't even know who are in this hell for ostensibly no reason whatsoever. Because if I'm getting this enlightenment when I come up there, that this was just some temporary hell that we were placed in for arbitrary reasons, I'm not going to be happy about that. What kind of person would be happy about that? That is reprehensible.
That's a very good point. You go to this amazing, wonderful theme park that you're suggesting, and then you get to watch all of your loved ones grieve your death, and you're supposed to be like, you silly people. Oh, what's wrong
Wait
with
till you find out.
Just, this is all part of the setup. The punchline's coming. Like, that sounds horrible. That sounds like a hideous thing for any god to do.
Yeah. Like if my son was still alive and I died and I was watching him suffer my loss, like, especially if I died when he was young, like if something happens to me and I pass away tomorrow and my 11-year-old is left to be raised without a mother, am I supposed to just be happy looking down? I'm supposed to just go, well, I'm happy now. I can't conceive of a circumstance that I could be happy in that situation unless something fundamental was changed about who I am. And then I'm not there anymore. Whatever version of me has been recreated to force me to be happy is. And so I'm not going there anyway.
I'm saying that your temporary loss is hell, like I said, and then in the afterlife, it would make up for it by watching your son grow up if he died of something in
There's a weird noise happening on your end, by the way, like a very, very, very strange noise. But I don't think that you're getting what I'm saying either. Like, there is no like in that circumstance, I could not be happy watching him be anguished.
And I would also add on to that, like, what kind of God, honestly, if this God is supposed to be all knowing, all powerful, all loving, what kind of love and what kind of wisdom requires this weird divine hazing before you get the opportunity to enjoy the paradise that he wants you to have, where you don't have emotions?
No, he wants you to have emotions in paradise.
You said there's no sadness, no joy, no creativity.
That's if there was no counterexample. This counterexample of hell is a necessity. We can't just have one world. We'd have two.
Got it. So it is necessary that we experience extreme pain and agony so that later on we know what it is to be creative and love and things like that. And this God can't come up with any better system than that. I can come up with a better system than that.
And not only that, he's an all-loving God. So that is that's the most loving system.
The most loving system that I can come up with is to have a child and to torture the shit out of that child so that later on they know they're not being tortured. That's the best you can come up with. Really? That's the best this God can do?
What's your system?
Literally anything else. How about if I'm going to create people, I provide for them and make sure they're taken care of. I wouldn't become a parent if I wasn't ready to provide for and give them the best possible life that I could, right? So why would you create people knowing full well that they're going to starve to death? How about you fix that problem? How about if you want to give people context, you just tell them. If I'm a teacher, I go out and I teach kids about science. I don't need to go throw kids out into the African savannah to teach them about how evolution works or about what lions are. I can just Talk to them about it. So is God just crappy at explaining things? Like there's a million other options here that don't involve children starving to death, don't involve cancer, don't involve rape, don't involve torture, don't involve genocide, don't involve famine, don't involve drought, don't involve, earthquakes and tidal waves and volcanoes, don't involve mass murder, don't involve AIDS. There's a million examples that we can very easily come up with about to teach somebody what reality is like without afflicting them with unimaginable suffering and pain. So why is the best this God can do, I'm just going to have to let a bunch of kids die in fucked up ways so that hopefully they'll like me later and they'll all think it's a big laugh? Like, why is that his best plan? What a crap plan.
I guess we're done.
Did I miss anything there, Noah?
Nope, I just think it's the best counterexample.
No, I don't think that we're getting through to you precisely about what's going on. I think you're really holding on to it. So maybe call back at another time because we have several other callers.
But before you go, have you already dropped them?
No, go ahead.
All right, just really quickly. I want to be very clear here. All I'm saying, I'm going to make this as simple as possible, is that there is no justification. If your God really is in control, there is no justification for the horrible world he has created. That is my simple. I would like you to respond to just that. Do you think that the amount of suffering and pain and misery in this world is justifiable? That it's okay? That it's worth it?
Yes. It's a counterexample for a life.
Then you and I have deeply different moralities. I don't think there is any plan. There is no situation in which letting children starve to death is a good part of it. There is no plan where pedophilia is a good part of it. There is no plan where people being slaughtered by the millions is a good idea that gets us to, that's a great means to an end. There is zero justification for that, period.
And placing
and if
them
you're
on
going
a
to sit here and say, if you're going to sit here and say, yeah, I know children get raped all the time, worth it, then I don't think you and I are on the same page.
Yeah, and placing them on a planet where diseases exist that you would have also created, and the planet is designed to kill them in multiple ways. Like you're placing all of these obstacles that cause suffering, even if humans didn't hurt each other, even if we were all incredibly kind to each other and nothing but altruistic, horrifying things would still happen to us because of the planet that we live on and the other animals and diseases that are on this planet. And if he created this planet, then he created it that way. He created it to cause us plight.
Yep.
Even if we were nothing but altruistic.
Hell's a scary place.
Yeah, it's an unnecessary place is what I'm saying. There's no justification for it. It didn't have to be this way. And if this God is really all-knowing, they would know that. She would be able to figure something better out, right?
Yeah, and this wouldn't be the place. This wouldn't be our starter pack either, right? Because you're in your model, we're essentially being punished for being created, so that later on we can go, oh well, aren't we actually lucky because for the rest of eternity we get to not be tortured anymore, and now we know what torture is like.
That sounds awful. That sounds like a monstrous, evil thing to do. Any God that would create a world like that is an absolute psychopath.
I don't see any other way.
God doesn't exist is probably one.
Yeah, or maybe, the all-knowing thing could come up with a better plan. But hey, it works for Noah, so it must work for everybody, right?
Yeah, drop some omnis, I think is probably.
And
reassess.
That's awful, my dude.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for calling in, though.
We will let you go. Call back some other time, Noah, and it was nice talking to you. Have a good rest of your day. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well,
yeah.
If you liked that call and you like hearing some of the other calls, we now have a channel that houses all of the ACA shows so that you can experience not just the Atheist Experience, but all of the shows the ACA has to offer. In order to go see that, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, and you can listen to everything that's the latest from all of the shows that we have to offer. We also have 3 Facebook groups that are entirely run by the fans, for the fans, so that you can interact with one another. The first is the Atheist Experience fan group, and that's at tiny.cc/FBAXP. There's also the Atheist Experience private fan group. That's where you can interact without having those interactions appear on any of your public feeds. That's tiny.cc/FBAXPPR. And we have a brand new group, and it's the Atheist Experience fan group, and it's atheist versus theist debates. And that's where you can go and try out some of your best arguments with both theists and atheists alike. And you can find that at tiny.cc/AXP fan debates. So go over there and find some community. Are you ready for another call, my friend?
Ready when you are.
It's Jeffrey's turn.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Hi, Jeffrey. Welcome to the Atheist Experience.
Hello.
What would you like to talk about today?
Hello, Shannon. This
Hi.
is my first time speaking to you and Forrest. Yeah, it looks like Forrest. I've never spoken to you.
It's a pleasure to meet
Grace
you,
and
Jeffrey.
peace to both of you, and good afternoon.
Afternoon.
It looked like when I tuned in, it looked like you guys were talking about whether or not God created the two genders or not.
That was the poll in our live chat.
Yeah, that was one of the prompts we had. Yeah.
Yeah, I responded to that poll. That's kind of how I'm interacting with the show at this point.
Okay.
What do you think?
I haven't called into the Atheist Experience since I got hung up on by Matt maybe a couple years ago now.
Well, let's see if you can have a better track record this time. So, what was your answer to the question? What was your answer to the question?
I believe he definitely did. I responded, yes, he did create two genders.
Okay.
Okay.
And do you have a justification for that?
A justification for that.
Yeah. I skipping over whether or not God exists, because obviously we're going to disagree there, just like as far as the gender thing is concerned.
Yeah, I'm really not sure how to answer that.
Why do you think that?
that's
You said that you
fruitful
do
for you.
think that, so why do you think that?
Just simply because I'm a Christian that believes with the Bible testimony. Simply,
Okay.
I can put it
So,
as succinctly as that.
So just really quick, are you aware of the fact
And
that
also, I can add. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I can
you're just
also
fine.
add just from my own experience as well, just from observation of my own life and looking at my own particular gender and observing other, of the opposite gender.
So
I
really
believe that
quickly,
those
and
are
this is not
realities that can be
to
observed.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jeffrey, one sec.
So-
Just let Forrest go.
yeah, I just want to know, like, and this is not to pull some elitist bullshit argument. I genuinely am asking: have you ever studied any anthropology or any biology, but specifically anthropology? Hopefully,
I can't
Like
say
beyond,
that
like, a
I
high school
have. Yes, I mean, in a setting, in a academic setting or anything like that.
Okay.
Just like I said,
All right,
just
so
my own life experience.
yeah. So the reason why I ask is just because I don't want to be a dick and be up here like, well, these scientists say these things, if that's something you've never had the opportunity to experience. So just so you know, I know you've never talked to me before. I'm a biologist. I have multiple degrees in biology, and I currently am studying bioanthropology, which is the human biology is what I focus on now. And just something that we are now currently aware of and have been studying for a long time. Number one is that sex and gender are different things. So sex biologically is discerning between what you could call male and female. Gender is not a biological construct. Gender is a social construct. It's a way in which a person is, it's a, how do you say this? A reflection and a representation of a person's expectations and a society's expectations of the roles given to that particular biological sex. So gender is something that changes from culture to culture, from generation to generation, from person to person, sometimes from day to day. Gender is a very fluid thing, and it is not a binary. It's a total spectrum. So right off the bat, the question is there two genders? You're talking about something that several other cultures throughout history have had more than two, have had a fluidity between them, have had, totally different concepts. And the binary framework that we use today of talking about, males and females, men and women, boys and girls. This is at this point something that is very outdated obviously puritanical and parochial in nature, very much Eurocentric, and arguably rooted in white supremacy, because it was, these European explorers that use the word explorer loosely, that bulldozed across all of these other cultures, all of these other indigenous ontologies that had totally different concepts of gender, and replaced them with their Judeo-Christian framework that you are now arguing for at this very moment. So there have been countless millions of people throughout history that did not accept the gender binary that we are trying so hard to adhere to today. And also, the simple fact that it is a social construct means that it's fluid and it's something that can change at any moment. And all of that is just talking about gender, which is often related with sex, but sex also isn't a binary. So that's a whole other argument that I don't want to talk your ear off with at this moment. Does that make sense to you, Jeffrey, what I've just said? Do you have anything to counter that with, or anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, I'm hearing everything you're saying. And what I get from it is that I rushed in to answer that poll question, I think, too quickly, because I had, I guess, confounded sex with gender. And
lots of people
that's why it was so hard. Yeah, and because you made it, made it clear that it's more a social construct and it's a little more involved with my understanding of the question, I may reconsider my answer to the question. Maybe I will also the answer to it.
I also want to be clear again, like I just said. Also, biological sex is not a binary either. Like, not in any species, really, not even humans. So like, a lot of people like to throw out that you're XX or XY, but like that's not even close to the truth, and that's also not how we define sex. So like, sex isn't a binary either. Sex, gender, and sexual orientation, they're very often conflated, and they're very often said that they're all binary systems, and they're just not.
Yeah, we do so much.
It really sounds very. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say. I was just gonna quickly add that we do so much that we don't realize psychologically when it comes to making these assessments as well. Like, if you look at me, and look at Forrest, like, immediately most people are going to assume that I'm a woman and assume that he's a man because of our gender representations and our social roles and how we publicly identify, vocal inflections, yada yada yada. But you really, really, really have no idea what my genetic makeup is. Like, you've not seen, nor have I seen, my genetic screening. I have no idea what my chromosomes consist of. I really don't know. Most of us do not know all of these things. But we make these assessments based on
there's more than meets the eye.
Right. We make these assessments based on cultural norms that we've taken in and internalized, and then use when we're assessing people that we interact with in the outside world. And more today, people are pushing up against that and saying, okay, well, that binary doesn't actually fit me. And because it doesn't fit me, I don't identify with it. I'm carving out a space that makes more sense for me. And that butts up against Judeo-Christian principles surrounding what societal roles, even for people who are male or female, should be, and wanting people to adhere to those roles. And that's why there's so much pushback, when it just is the case that throughout time, like Forrest said, people have presented it in a multitude of different ways. And that just is the way it is. And it's framed based on the societal structure where any one person is going to fall on that spectrum. It's not as simple as people want to make it out to be.
Yeah. Nothing in biology is basic biology. And it's hard that we want to cram everybody down into boxes, but that just isn't how life works,
Mm-hmm.
Right. Life is a little more complicated and in-depth, and there's levels to everything. I can understand. I definitely appreciate that. So I guess it really, I notice a lot of I guess anger. People react with a lot of anger whenever someone approaches the subject very simplistically, like I of course did with seeing the poll, and I jumped right in and just said, "Bam! I know where I stand on this," and not didn't consider all the things that you're bringing to the table. So I can appreciate.
Well, in all
that.
fairness,
so,
why would you ever have needed to? That's a bunch of different people's experience, and so this is something that we're just now starting to talk about. So it's awesome that you're willing to hear us out. That's great.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely,
it is good.
Absolutely, I love the freedom of being able to discuss these things, and I lament the fact that many of my fellow people of faith don't have the patience to at least hear other people's point of view out and civilly discuss the matter without getting so emotional. You know, I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
I've been guilty in the past of being emotional.
Oh yeah.
And will be in the future. Will be in the future. Not immune.
I've been guilty myself, so that's why I recognize it. So, okay, thank you guys for your time. You have a very blessed, or let me see. I'm sorry, I got to watch my language.
You can just say good. Have a good day. Don't trigger me, Jeffrey. I'll go off the rails.
I'll get real emotional. Oh, by the way, Jeff,
right.
if you're into reading, I recommend there's a really cool book called Evolution's Rainbow by Dr. Joan Roughgarden out of Stanford University. It's a fantastic breakdown of sex, gender, sexual orientation, just all the best knowledge that we had up until that book was written. It's a wonderful book, and it's a bit of a slog to get through sometimes if you're not super into biology. But if you are super interested in learning more about this, that was one of my favorite books to recommend.
Thank you, Forrest, for that recommendation.
Yes.
I will look into it. You guys have a good afternoon.
You
Take
too.
care, Jeffrey.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Later.
Bye. Oh,
What a super nice guy.
Yeah, that got worked out better than most of the calls that start like that end up working out. That was nice. It's a nice change of pace for us. I'm glad we were here for it.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. Before we take the next call, I just want to say that we have a brand new store, and I ordered some merch from the store, and I really like it. I can say with authority that the hoodies are awesome because I got 2 of them, and I wear them all the time. They are very, very nice. So I feel very comfortable endorsing this store because it's awesome. And we get
a face mask with Atheist Experience on it.
Yes,
that won't
we have
piss anybody
so much
off.
more cool. We have way more cool stuff now too at the stores. So go in and check out the new store. Like we have beanies and we have cell phones and we have tote bags. We have way more of a selection, and 100% of the proceeds will go to the ACA. And be sure to check out the stores for all of the other shows. Sorry, they're right below the chat, and then you'll notice right below the chat you'll notice the donate now box. Donations made there. Why does anybody let me?
You want to start this whole thing over? Go back to the
that's
store.
Right. Restart the show. Restart the show. There is a donate now box, and donations made there go 100% to the ACA as well. YouTube doesn't take a cut. That's probably the best way that you can support us. And finally, we want to send a big thank you. This is the most important part of the show. Huge thank you to the crew, the volunteers that do all of the work. We need to give them a huge round of applause because they do
some of their cameras are off.
Everything for us. It's like thankless tasks.
That was the worst way we could have presented them for a second. All the cameras were broken.
I'm willing to bet that was an homage to you, my friend.
Yeah.
That was to honor you probably in your earlier mishap.
Yeah, my struggles.
That's right. They were just making you feel at home. That's what was going on. All right, perfect. We're ready for another call. You good? You good?
Bring them on. I'm good whenever you are.
All right, perfect. Okay, we are going to take John.
Hey, John.
John in Canada.
Bring John on.
What would you like to have a conversation about today, John?
I heard
say a boot
about gender and how. I heard a few things about gender and how gender and biology and sex are different. I want to say it's all bullshit. You're completely wrong.
Okay, so this call is going to go differently than the last call, is what I'm gathering.
I'm sorry. You're saying that gender is bullshit, or that gender and sex are different things is bullshit?
Sex is reality. Gender is a social construct made up by people like you, people on the left who want to live in a fantasy world. That's what I'm saying.
Forrest, you made up gender. Congratulations. Good work.
So just to be clear here, I agree that biological sex is a reality, that it's there's several different layers to it. But gender, I also agree, is a social construct, but I didn't make it up and the left didn't make it up. Gender is just the word that we use to describe how people present themselves and the way that they act and their representation of their biological sex. So it's not that this is something that the left made up. This is something that it's the term that we use to describe the way humans have behaved for tens of thousands of years.
I'm saying it's all bullshit. Sex and gender mean the same thing with dictionary. Look it up. Anyway,
I have degrees studying it, so I'm sorry, it's not true.
I don't care what school, whatever school you went to is wrong. I also want to point out this. By promoting this lie, you're defeating your own purpose. Because I'm assuming that you're assuming you don't believe that there's such a thing as gender, correct? You just said that. That means
no, I said that gender is a social construct. I never said it didn't exist.
Okay, well, if there's no such thing as gender, that means there's no such thing as a woman.
Did you not listen to what he just said? John, I will mute you so fast. Remember how I said I get emotional sometimes?
I never said there's no such thing as gender. I said it's a social construct. So whatever else you're about to say falls apart. I didn't say that. Gender exists. It's just not a biological reality.
No, gender is a biological reality.
Sex is a biological reality, but gender and sex are different things.
No, they're not. I don't know why you believe that.
Because the evidence shows me that that's how reality works. How would you define sex?
If a person has a penis, it's a male. If a person has a
vagina, I have a penis?
It's a girl. I don't know why that's so hard.
Do I have a penis, John? Can you tell if I have a penis? Do I have a penis?
Get up, take off your pants.
Do I have a penis? No, I'm not going to. Am I a girl or a boy? How do you make these determinations on a day-to-day basis if people aren't showing you their penis? You can see me and you can see what I look like. So is my gender what I look like? My gender is what I look like, right?
All right, Shannon. Why don't you call yourself Harry? If you're a man, call yourself Harry.
Because I'm a woman. That's not her name. I'm a woman, but I could be a woman with a penis. You would never know. I could have a penis, John.
I win. Goodbye.
Well, John really doesn't like it when I refuse to show him my penis, I guess.
Right? You really wanted to see your dick, Shannon.
You really wanted to see. I can't blame him, really, to be fair.
How weak and vapid of an argument do you have to just scream "I win" and hang up? That's kind of rough, yo. Just throwing this out there for those of you who wants to know. External genitalia have very little to do with actual biological sex. There's lots of ways that men cannot have penises and that women can have penises. That's just not how it works. Sorry, that's not real. And if your idea of gender and sex boils down to that, that's incredibly reductionist. And it's like saying that a woman is just a thing that can have babies. It's really anti-feminist and pretty gross. So sorry, that's not how anything works, dude.
Team Forrest. Hashtag Team Forrest.
I win. So end the show because I just said it. So now
we're done here.
That's it. It's over.
That's how we win arguments on this show. We just declare that we're the winners and then refuse to continue to engage with you. All right. Well, we have many other shows, and they actually continue to
transition. Perfect.
Nailed it. We have many other shows. Not just the Atheist Experience. We also have Nonprofits and Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, and Talk Heathen. And if you didn't catch all of the shows last week to get all of these fantastic moments, here's a taste that you'd probably like to watch.
Ooh.
If I have a mindful, healthy relationship, that means we don't bring in our own shame or issues or react disproportionately. It's like, oh no, you still get to be two humans colliding together, which is a shit show, and hopefully it goes as well as possible.
I mean, if I had to pick one, I'd probably take that Roman wine god, Bacchus, I think his name is.
Oh, that's new to me, but yeah, that sounds pretty good.
He'd be a cool deity, man. Those Romans had some gods that knew how to party.
I wouldn't be comfortable with any religious institution doing it, you know? Let's take the opportunity to just talk more about, I don't know, math or reading. I mean, we could use
science.
Or
science.
It seems like that's what you believe, Frank, or whoever your name is.
My name's not Frank. We'll call me. I'll be Frank. Let me be Frank. Okay, I'll be Frank. Let me be frank with you. Okay, Patrick.
Just listening to you guys has brought me up, and I needed that.
Good. Go give that man a good squeeze on the hand. Let him know that none of us here are praying for him. But all of us can't wait until he walks out of the hospital to tell his story.
right, we're
What a
ready to
charming
take
visual.
another caller. Okay, we're ready. I'm ready. I'm
ready.
refreshed.
My body is ready. My mind
So
is
is
ready.
mine.
Bring
We're
them
gonna
on.
we're gonna talk to Gohan. Hi, Gohan. Please let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. We are you're on the Atheist Experience. What would you like to talk about today?
Yes, ma'am. Gohan's correct.
Okay.
Awesome. You're like the Dragon Ball Z character, right?
You got it. Yes, sir.
Radical. I've never watched the show, but I know the name. I'm excited.
Well, let me just do a little bit of baseless advertising. There's a movie coming out for Dragon Ball Z in a couple months.
What?
So if you're interested, go watch it.
Whoa.
Dude, I'm always down for new things. That sounds cool. I don't know. It's got such a massive fan base. It must be good, right?
My kid loves it.
Oh yeah.
I might be a little biased, but yes, it's good.
Right on. I'm sorry to ramble about your name. What are you calling about, man?
I was going to talk about abortion.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. We'll talk about.
I was just going to say one argument I've heard a lot recently, ever since the leak came out, was comparing abortion to organ donation. I just wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that, and I do have a rebuttal, but I want to know if you guys kind of agree that that is comparable.
In a way, I've used that line of reasoning to say. In fact, Shannon and I were talking about this just before the show. Is that if I want to donate my organs here in America, like if I want to be an organ donor, I have to sign off on that before I die, right? So if I die and you need my heart to live, and I didn't sign off on that before I died, now we're both dying, right? That's just how it is. So if we're gonna say that someone with the uterus can't decide who gets to use that uterus to survive, then we're saying that if you have a uterus, you have less rights than a literal corpse. And that's kind of a weird argument to make, to say that you gain more civil rights after death. It's like, that's how I would present it. I don't know if that's what you were arguing or what you were bringing up or not.
That is what I was bringing up, and I do have a rebuttal for it. And Ms. Shannon, is that kind of your stance as well?
Yeah, I'm on record basically anywhere anybody can find me saying, not specifically a Forrest argument, but a similar version. And it has to do with the fetuses having like a special set of rights. Basically, my position is that in no other circumstance does anybody have a right to any component of somebody's body to sustain their own life. Like, for example, if I was in a room with someone, we had the same blood type, and I stabbed that person, for example, they were bleeding to death, and I was the only person in the room, and I was responsible for that. I stabbed them. I was responsible for the harm that just took place for this person and the reason that they are dying. Nobody anywhere has the right to force me to give that person a blood transfusion. They will just die. You cannot violate my personal autonomy in any system that I'm aware of by forcing me to give that person a blood transfusion. I would have to do it of my own volition. So why does somebody who's actually murdering somebody else have more rights to bodily autonomy than any woman on earth?
Somebody who just had sex. And that's the thing, is that like if you're pro forced birth, you're saying you have more rights before you're born and more rights after you die. And in that middle ground where you're actually alive and kicking, you're fucked. Like it's very strange.
There's more counter arguments to abortion being legal as well, or there's more arguments, I should say, but that's one that I feel is pretty strong in my opinion.
Yeah.
I said that's a pretty fair question. It sounds very similar to the violinist. I have a rebuttal I heard from pro-life apologist Trent Horn.
I've spoken to Trent about abortion.
Sorry?
I've actually spoken to Trent directly about abortion. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Cool. It's called the reverse violinist. I've called the Atheist Experience and discussed the reverse violinist before. I want to talk about the violinist and organ donation. So both of you guys are kind of agreeing that organ donation is kind of analogous to forced pregnancy. So my rebuttal to that is, if I fail to give an organ to somebody who needs it, or if I fail to keep the violinist alive and I walk away, what does that person die of? If the person needs a kidney, if I fail to give them my kidney, what do they die of?
They die of kidney failure, but you didn't kill them.
Okay. Right. Agreed. If somebody is pregnant and they don't want to be and they have an abortion, what does the fetus die of?
Of not being sustained, of whatever, but the mother didn't kill them.
No.
Or the mother to be, I should say.
Doctor does. They always kill the fetus before they take it out. If they take the fetus out, it's technically a live birth, and then it's under everybody's definition, that's inarguably a human person. So then the doctor is responsible for that life. So they always kill the fetus before they take it out. So
I'm not an abortion doctor, so I have no idea.
I have no idea if that's accurate.
You could be
or not.
you could be telling the truth, or you could be not telling the truth. But I still don't think that that's a rebuttal. Like in that instance, if you're saying let's all accept that as true for the sake of argument right now. I'll just for the sake of argument. If you're saying that in this case a doctor is dismembering or killing the fetus in order to take it out, that still would not be the person with the uterus causing that, right?
No.
So in this instance, your problem would be with the method in which it is done, as opposed to the problem being with the fact that it is done.
Not necessarily the method. To me, it doesn't matter how you kill the fetus. It's the fact that you are directly and purposefully killing the fetus. If I fail
what do you think of my scenario where I stabbed you? So let's look this is actually analogous to my initial point that I made. But I stab you. You and I are in a room. I stab you. You are bleeding to death. You are dying because I stabbed you. You are dying of a stabbing. The only way to save your life is for me to give you my blood. Do I have to give you my blood?
What am I dying from? Am I dying from you?
A stab wound.
From blood loss, yeah.
From blood loss, yeah. A stab wound. So you're dying from blood loss.
Yeah.
And if I give you a transfusion, you'll survive.
I'm not dying from a failure of organ donation or blood transfusion. I'm dying from the stabbing.
Right. So I could save you in this scenario, right? By giving you my blood.
Right.
Right.
So
do I have to?
Abortion is not about forced saving. It's about against killing.
So you're not answering my question though. So you still haven't given me an answer to my question.
Okay, so then let me answer it. No, you do not have to.
Why? Why don't I have to?
Because you're not. Because what you did to me, the thing that's killing me is the stabbing. You're not bound to save my life. You are bound to not kill me.
So I did kill you in that scenario, though, right? I stabbed you.
That's why you would get in trouble. You wouldn't get in trouble because you didn't save my life. You would get in trouble because you stabbed me.
Yep.
So I think I get where you're coming from here, though.
Yeah,
I think I'm seeing the distinction. Okay. It sounds like what you're saying is that you're absolving the uterus haver, the mother to be, the whatever. You're absolving this person because all they're doing is separating their organs from this fetus, but you're saying that the doctor that is performing this procedure is directly and actively ending a life, whereas the other person is just disconnecting from the life. This doctor is actually ending the life, and so they are performing an act of murder. Is that more what you're saying?
Pretty close. I am going to change it a little bit. I'm going to say the doctor would kind of be viewed as a hitman. So if they hired a hitman, they would be culpable as well.
Okay, so I get where you're going. That's a funny analogy. So the problem that I have with that is that there is a distinction between ending a pregnancy and ending a life. And so you said earlier on that doctors kill the fetus before they extract it. Again, I don't think that's accurate. But if it is, if it's just ending the pregnancy, then that's moot. But if that is the case, then we can start having the discussion about personhood. Because what you said a minute ago also is that everybody can agree that this is a human person. And there are a lot of people that wouldn't. And if your argument is that this is a cluster of cells with unique human DNA, okay, I brush out a lot of those every time I brush my teeth in the morning. And so, where do we draw the line on that? And how do we define life?
Can I butt in really quick?
By all means, yeah.
You aren't killing human organisms, you're killing human cell. Sometimes the cell can be an organism, sometimes it's just tissue. But a fetus is a human organism. You are a human organism. The cells in your mouth are not human organisms.
So you're saying there's a certain point where you are killing the entire thing rather than just a chunk of it.
Yeah, so if you kill the entire thing, that would be killing a human organism. And I've called with this statement before. I don't think you should be able to kill a human organism unless there's high risk of severe harm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have another question because now I'm confused about what your view is on abortion just in general.
Go for it.
So
okay,
if that's the argument that you were making, then you don't think that it's wrong for a woman to anyone with a uterus who is pregnant to remove the fetus or the embryo or the zygote or the blastocyst or whatever from their uterus. Like that act is not incorrect. That like the woman is allowed to make that choice. You would say that, right?
As long as the human organism doesn't die, then yes. Like if there's like an advancement in science where we can make some type of embryo or outside uterus in the future,
right?
Yes, by all means, if you don't want to be pregnant, take that human out and put it in something that can sustain it. But just don't kill it.
But so we don't currently have. So I'm understanding what you're saying. So you're saying that if there was some sort of technology where that could function like a uterus, and we could somehow extract like whatever state this pregnancy is in out of the uterus and place it in that machine to sustain its life until it's viable on its own, then it would be acceptable to make this decision. But since we don't have that technology available, it's currently not acceptable for a woman to make that decision.
Yes. And by the way, they do have that technology in Dragon Ball Z. I'm just going to state that.
Okay. All right.
Hell
fair
yeah.
enough.
All right. So like my biggest issue with what you're saying here, and I'm going to ask a couple of questions because I want to make sure that this is what you're saying, is what it sounds to me is that the premises that you're laying out do make sense, but where you're going with it is a completely arbitrary line. And I want to draw attention to that more than anything. You said a second ago that you think
what's
that...
the arbitrary line?
Well, what I mean is that you said a second ago that... Sorry?
I was going to ask, what is the arbitrary line?
Oh, I think Forrest is getting there.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting there. I promise. Yeah. So you said a second ago that you don't think that abortion should be allowed except in cases where, you know, this pregnancy is life-threatening to the mother, right? Let's say for an ectopic pregnancy, for example. Did I hear you right?
Not only life-threatening, but high risk of severe harm. So whatever severe harm would allow you to kill a 5-year-old, maybe it's they're going to cut off one of your limbs. I think you can shoot that 5-year-old.
Okay.
Like that's not
what about cases of rape or incest?
No, I don't think it should be allowed then.
Okay. So, and I'm just this purely rhetorical, just to see where your lines are. What you are saying is that there is a certain point where one person's life is worth more than another person's life.
No.
Why not? Why is that not what you're saying? You just said that if someone's going to cut off your leg, you can kill a 5-year-old to stop it.
Yes. So if the severe harm reaches that kind of level, it's like you're going to lose a leg from the pregnancy. I feel like you should be able to kill that human, whether it's a 5-year-old or a fetus.
So we're saying a fetus is a complete person with complete rights. So I'm going to abandon the word fetus and I'm just going to say another person, just to be very clear that that's what we're talking about. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Cool. So you are saying that if somebody the cost of a human life, killing another person, and the cost of this leg right here are the same. I can cut this leg off or I can kill a person. If I have the choice, either one is valid.
Are you talking about like an innocent person, or is it killing this person?
This
thing
came
they
along
take,
from a
even though
fetus,
they're
so I'm
not
going to
direct-
assume that the fetus has committed no crimes. So, yes, I can kill an innocent person, or I can cut off my leg. And if I decide to keep my leg and murder that guy, that's totally justifiable.
I'm sorry, maybe innocent wasn't the right word. I should have used like a non-threat.
Sure, yeah, whatever. This dude is just minding those business. He's shopping at Walmart. He's picking up some clams, and I can either just gun him down in cold blood, or I can lose a leg. And I'm deciding I'm keeping the leg. This bro isn't going home. That's totally fine, because otherwise I might have lost a leg. Is that what you're arguing?
No, sir.
Okay, what's the difference between that and what you just said a minute ago?
Because a minute ago, what I was saying was there is a direct action that they are taking, either purposefully or not, that is going to make you lose your leg.
But you said that it's okay if you terminate a pregnancy if there's severe health complications. And one of the examples you gave, which I realized was fatuous, is that you were saying if, for example, they were to lose a leg, then it would be okay to terminate the pregnancy. So I'm saying, by what you just said, a human life is worth the same as a human leg. And so right here, I've got 2 lives ready to go. If I want to kill 2 people, but I can keep jogging in the morning, that's okay. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No. So again, it's not the fact that it's a life versus a leg. It's the fact that that life is threatening your leg.
Okay.
Whether they're
so
doing
if
it on
someone is
purpose
trying, so if someone is coming at me trying to chop my leg off and I murder them, that's cool.
So
I wouldn't call that murder. I would call that rightful killing.
Right, but you see how silly this argument is getting, though. That's the whole point of what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
this
that's
is...
why I want clarity for just 1 second. So, because
by all means.
I'm following what Forrest is saying, because in this scenario, like, you couldn't really say that a fetus or an embryo has any sort of intent to cause the pregnant person harm, right? Like,
That's precisely where I was going. I'm so glad you
there's
got there.
no, like, a fetus isn't sitting in there going, I am going to fuck my mom's gallbladder so hard that she has to have it taken out. Because I did that to my mom. She had to have it removed shortly after because I kicked the shit out of it until it was dead. It was gone, right? So, but I didn't actively make that decision. So that distinction that you're drawing there, in that scenario, if that's justification that will allow me to end a pregnancy, and because you're identifying a fetus as a fully autonomous person, then Forrest's analogy stands, because you're saying if I can kill an innocent person in your paradigm, if there's any threat of harm to me, and it will prevent that harm from taking place. That is what you are actually saying when you make that argument. Am I getting what you're saying there, Forrest? Am I putting the pieces together?
No, you are, and that's exactly like that. I'm so glad you got to intent, because that's where I wanted to go with it next. It's just
I understand.
When do we say that? And because this is what I meant when you said this an arbitrary line. That's the arbitrary line I'm talking about. Is that you are picking a random point where you're like, okay, now it's okay. Yeah, by all means, respond.
Can I get a quick second? Sorry. So for me, let me go back. It doesn't matter if it's purposeful or not. Let's say the 5-year-old is coming at you to take off your leg, or let's say you're at a birthday party, the 5-year-old grabs a sword and thinks it's fun and is just swinging around. I think you have a right either way, whether they're trying to take off your leg or not, to shoot them. I think the same goes with the fetus. If they're trying to kick or take off your leg somehow, then...
but they're not trying is the problem I have.
We're having a totally different discussion is the thing. You started out by talking about, if I remember correctly, organ donation. And the whole conversation at the beginning was about bodily autonomy. It's not that conversation anymore. We are not talking about bodily autonomy. We're not talking about organs. We're not talking about anything. We're just talking about, if you even think about wronging me, your life is over. And that's weird. Like, you understand how weird that is?
It depends on how... It depends how high risk it is. So I said at first, high risk of severe harm. Right now, we've been talking about severe harm.
Which is also an arbitrary line.
Yeah.
What does high risk mean? When do you decide if it's high risk?
For me,
is the gallbladder high risk? Is the leg high risk? Also, it should be pointed out that every pregnancy is risky. you're going to have issues all the time. Your pelvis has to split. You're going to have internal scarring. You're going to damage your pelvic floor muscles. I don't know a pregnant woman that doesn't have some part of her body that's completely numb. Like there's
the risk of postpartum depression is also a huge one.
Absolutely. We're talking about mental anguish as well. Is that as bad as losing a leg? Because I think so. Like, where do we draw the line? You're making a completely arbitrary distinction where you're saying, okay, now it's okay to kill a person, but at all other times you can't. And that's kind of weird.
Can I take a quick second to respond?
Sure, by all means.
So the phrase high risk of severe harm for me is not defined. I just think whatever that arbitrary line is, it needs to be held consistent for all life. So whether that life is all human life. So whether that, all human organism life. Whether that human organism is 5-year-old, 50 years old, or 5-month-old fetus, or a 5-day-old embryo, I think that level needs to be held consistent. I don't know where that line should be, but as long as it's consistent. So if you wouldn't kill a 5-year-old for removing your gallbladder, then you shouldn't be able to kill a fetus for the same thing.
But then who makes that distinction? Like when you say hold it consistent,
court.
Who's in charge of so courts are in charge of deciding when you can and can't. So lawmakers are. Oh, go ahead, Forrest, because I'm trying to wrap my head.
I was just going to ask. You're fine. Do you think that as it stands today, the way that we frame it, that abortion is akin to murder? Because it sounds like that's the case based on what you're saying.
It depends on what you mean by murder. If you mean like unlawful killing, in Texas, technically it is unlawful killing of a human organism.
You're using legalistic terms now. We were asking you what you think.
Yeah, I just mean your opinion. Like, do you, not technically, like in your eyes, do you see abortion as murder?
I see it more as hiring a hitman. I see the abortion position as
what should be the legal punishment then for abortion? Because there's a punishment for hiring a hitman.
I think it was like 2 weeks ago. Matt Dillahunty had a phone call about this, and he hung up on the guy after he said his opinion. So I'm probably going to get hung up on. But I think if you hire a hitman to kill any human organism, you should go to jail.
So anybody who has an abortion should go to jail.
After it becomes illegal, yes.
For how long?
It's high risk of severe harm.
For how long? Well, again, I can't hire a hitman because I think someone's going to hurt me. So that doesn't really track.
No, but you can hire a bodyguard.
Doctors in this situation don't count as bodyguards. You've said hitman the whole time. It's not a bodyguard performing the abortion.
If it's illegal. Well, I mean, if a bodyguard kills somebody, it's either legal or not. If it was hired,
nuance is falling apart for me, and I have some further issues. One sec. Sorry, you haven't been hung up on. I'm listening, but now I have further questions because now we're entering into the legalistic realm. So how do you know if somebody has a justified abortion because there's a risk of harm? How do you know if somebody has an abortion versus a miscarriage? Because now we're entering into like, do people who are pregnant have any sort of right to medical privacy now, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we're entering to the legalistic realm and you're saying, well, then these people should be going to jail because it's akin to hiring a hitman when you end a pregnancy, then now you are saying that nobody who is capable of being pregnant has a right to any sort of medical privacy, because every time somebody has a miscarriage, we now have to ascertain what caused that miscarriage, whether or not they were attempting to self-induce it, whether or not they made a choice that could have potentially, even if it was an arbitrarily choice that they didn't intend to make that resulted in the end of that pregnancy. You now need to look at their medical records to see if they did have an abortion, to find out if they were even pregnant to begin with. So do we not have the right to medical privacy?
And I do see that this is now going more to the legal aspect of it.
Yes, you did that.
That's a big part of what you're saying, though.
You did that. You brought us there by talking about how courts and lawmakers make the rules of the land and what should happen.
I'm not the best person to discuss legal, but I will respond to your question.
Mm-hmm.
So HIPAA applies to anybody who, for a personal medical decision, abortion automatically involves two humans. So it's not just one person. So
does a
somebody needs to
miscarriage.
be,
By your justification,
yeah,
so does a miscarriage. How do you ascertain whether or not I've had a miscarriage or an abortion? And I've never had an abortion. I have had a miscarriage. When I had that miscarriage, should I have had to prove? Thank you. It was a wanted pregnancy, actually. When I had that miscarriage, should I have had to, at that point, had to prove to the legal system that it was in fact a miscarriage and that I had done everything in my power to retain that pregnancy? Because if you're entering into that realm, then it's not simply ending a pregnancy via abortion that becomes an issue. It's making any decision that could be any type perceived as any type of threat to the viability of that pregnancy. And there are so many things that you may not even know about your body. Like I have multiple sclerosis, for example. There's things that I learned when I was pregnant about how I needed to act and behave to make sure that I protect both my body and the baby. And I needed to act differently. If I hadn't had that education, I would have had another miscarriage. The reason I had the first one was because I didn't have that education, and I was exposed to some chemicals that caused me to have an asthma attack, and that asthma attack caused me to have a miscarriage. I didn't realize that was going to happen. If I did, then I would have avoided those chemicals. So I was negligent in that case based on your paradigm, which means that I should go to jail because at best that would be manslaughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if you probably weren't negligent, it doesn't sound like there was anything you tried to do to kill your kid. I think it's
That's
just
not, but negligence means that you aren't trying. I was negligent there. Should I be in jail right now? Should I be in jail right now because I didn't actively educate myself and what my body required in order to retain the pregnancy, and as a result made a decision that ended in me having a miscarriage? This is a real life example. This really happened. Should I be in jail right now?
My quick answer is no. I have a kid as well. I don't know everything that could kill her. There may be something that I could have researched that would end up killing her, but I didn't research. That's not negligence. That's just a part of life and being a parent.
If you leave a gallon of bleach out and your infant child drinks it and dies, even if you didn't know that bleach was poisonous, that's still negligence, and that is still, you are going to be convicted of a crime for that. So why is it any different for Shannon?
Right, but because I mean, I don't think it's anything, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I don't think it's anything like that. If your kid dies because they ate a fruit that was from a bad part of the planet that, I don't know, is having diseases or something, and then they get a disease, that's negligence. If you would have stayed up on the news, your kid would be alive. You can't go to jail for that. Not every case of
somebody would still be responsible for that, though. Like, then the company that sold the fruit would be responsible. Somebody would still go to jail. So that's what we're asking is, why do you have a different set of legal analysis, a different framework for abortion than you do for living humans if they're the same thing?
Right.
Well, I didn't know somebody would go to jail for that. I don't think they should.
You don't think that if I sell dangerous products and someone else dies because of it, I should be punished for that?
If you did everything you can to make sure it's not dangerous, no.
That's the whole point of liability, is I did something wrong. It doesn't matter if I meant to. There was a harm done. Somebody got hurt. Somebody needs to be held responsible.
Right.
No, I feel like maybe this is just a difference of our legal opinions, but I feel like if you did everything you could to make sure that fruit was healthy for society, it turns out it wasn't.
We're talking about fruit right now.
I don't feel like that.
It's real weird.
Like, so here's the problem, I think, with a lot of these abortion conversations. Go ahead. We're going to have to let you go soon, but I really want to get this in because I think that this is an overreaching problem with a lot of these abortion conversations that people have, is that people want to see it very black and white. They want to see it as either having an abortion is murdering another human or having an abortion isn't murdering another human. But there are real life implications when we start going down this road to female-bodied people and to people who have uteruses who can get pregnant. because you are encroaching upon our medical privacy. You are putting us into this like incredibly legalistic debate where we're now having a debate about fruit for some reason, when we should be like, there is so much more nuance and so much more impact in attempting to control what women can do with their bodies than is simply this black and white look, like having an abortion is murder, not having an abortion is murder, and then avoiding all of the nuance. Once you get into the nuance, like we're doing now, it starts to get a little bit ridiculous. Once you follow the paths and you realize where they actually lead, it starts to get a little bit ridiculous. It means that I don't have medical privacy. It means that anytime if I have a miscarriage, that means that I have to now prove I had a miscarriage. The only other alternative would be that that everybody who's ever had an abortion could just say that they had a miscarriage, right? Right? We could just say I had a miscarriage. Who's going to prove us wrong? Who's going to prove us wrong? The answer to that question is that we don't have medical privacy. We don't get to make decisions for ourselves. And it also gives the fetus a separate set of rights. You're saying that there are circumstances in which it is justifiable to have an abortion. But then who gets to determine those circumstances? Who gets to say it is justifiable in column A and it is not justifiable in column B? Who gets to assess whether or not you're in column A and column B? It's so utterly ridiculous, and it's so frustrating, and I've been listening for a very long time, to constantly have to debate whether or not I have the right to make my own goddamn decisions about what happens to my body and what I use it for. And every time I have this conversation, so help me God, it's with the man. And it's just like, it makes me vibrate. It makes me literally vibrate that I have to sit here quietly listening to whether or not I should have the rights that I have to do what I want with myself. Like, I just wish that any man ever would have to fucking go through something like that on a day-to-day basis. Because a lot less of these conversations would happen. Go ahead. Tell me why you get to decide what I do with my body. I'm listening.
I'm just going to say three things. I think one, where we're probably reaching the end of the call. I appreciate it. You guys have been really nice until this last little bit, which is still pretty good. Just a little thing I want to take on in a second. Second, I didn't call to convince you guys to be pro-life. I'm trying to unconvince myself of being pro-life. One of my arguments is abortion is not analogous to organ donation. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but so far I still feel like I'm in the same camp. And the third thing is it's very sexist to say because I'm a man, I can't have an opinion.
I didn't say that. I did it. Nope, you're going to stop right now because I never fucking said that. I did not say because you're a man, you can't have a decision. I did not. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with you for the past 20 minutes about it where I was very calm. So I'm not going to let you tell me that I said something I did not. All I said was every time I have this conversation, it's with a man. That's what I said. And that's worth pointing out because A, it's true, and B, it's telling. If I didn't think you were allowed to have an opinion, I wouldn't have sat here and had a conversation with you and listened to what you had to say.
It's very sexist to say that my sex matters in a negative way. And then it's also to say that
we're going to let you go. Goodbye. Have a nice day. I've apparently we've hit my limit. I had some of those emotions I was talking about earlier.
Go off, Queen.
It's just like
you've never had to experience this, and therefore you have a weird set of rules for it. Well, that's sexist for you to say that I haven't experienced it. Therefore, I do. Like, come on, dude.
it's. I wish. No, I don't wish this on anybody, actually. But the people that have to quietly sit through conversations about whether or not they should or shouldn't have rights, being pushed back against. Because they say, this is frustrating for me because you're forcing me into having a dialogue with you. And you're telling me that if I don't have it in a certain kind of way, if I don't have the appropriate tone and listen to you and reflect what you're saying in the exact manner that you deem acceptable, that's unreasonable of me. Well, you're talking about whether or not I should or should not have fucking rights.
And isn't it weird that like I never have to argue? I've yet to have a discussion about what medical procedures I should have access to, what bathrooms I should have to use, what all these ridiculous freaking arguments that we're having to have. I don't have to do any of it, and so no matter what I bring to the table, it's valid. But anytime somebody who's in an oppressed group is like, "Hey, yo, this is really freaking aggravating for very obvious reasons," now all of a sudden tone matters. Fuck off,
Right?
dude.
Oh, you're being unreasonable. Yes,
Oh, my
yes,
gosh.
and sexist. It's sexist, and it always goes. Well, you saying a man shouldn't have an opinion. Never said that. Never said
Nope.
that. Talked to you
But
calmly.
that's
very
what's
long
next on
time,
the script, of course.
until we got to the point that for some reason we were talking about whether or not you can sell spoiled fruit to people, and then I called an audible because
dude,
this is insane.
I was getting to the end of my rope at that point as well. It's so weird. It's the same thing as like to draw a comparison. It's the same thing as like when we were having protests about Black Lives Matter. Well, why aren't you talking? Why are you setting yourselves apart? Why aren't you talking about white people? Why aren't you talking? Because that's not what we're talking about right now. So like when we talk about, hey, women's rights are human rights, and like we should make sure that they're treated the same. Well, why aren't you talking about men? Why aren't men allowed to be in the? Because you're in every fucking conversation. So like we're just having a different one for a minute.
Right. You just need to elect a president if this isn't fucking about you and listen to him.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Yes, just that's what we need. We need more straight white men to say exactly what you just said, because then someone might listen and it'll be easy.
Okay. Well, are you willing to take one more quick call before we go? There's only 3 minutes left.
Let's rock into it. Let's go.
Okay. All right. We are going to talk to Tony's been waiting a very long time. We have to talk super quick. Sorry, Tony. I know you've been waiting for a while. Thank you for calling the Atheist Experience. You're talking to Shannon and Forrest. What would you like to discuss today?
Hey, Tony.
Hey, guys, two of my favorite people. This is great. A little starstruck.
Hell yeah.
But that last caller fried my last brain cell, so I might stumble through this one. Hey, Shannon, this one's more geared towards you. I found myself defending theists the other day, using one of your videos on how theism is not mental disorder, which was great to be able to pull that one up on YouTube. Thank you for making that video.
That's why I made it. I was like, here's a resource. Please, for the love of God, use it. Stop it. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
This other atheist friend of mine came up with Deborah Mitchell. Are you familiar with her?
Nope.
I think she was a CNN correspondent a while ago. She wrote a book or a paper titled "Why I Will Not Raise My Children to Know God," and in there she makes the statement, and I'll circle back to why this is confounding me, but she makes the statement that religion promotes or produces narcissism in people. I know 6 narcissistic people. They are all religious from early childhood. 4 of them are related to. 2 of them are diagnosed for sure. The other 4 are trying to avoid, any indication. And I wanted your take on that because that's my only experience with narcissistic people. And they all just happen to be religious since childhood.
It wouldn't from a clinical perspective, it wouldn't cause narcissism, right? Like narcissism, nobody knows really what causes it, but generally it's something that's kind of like an immutable part of a person psychologically. Do I think that many religious systems can enable narcissists to do severe damage? Yeah. Yep. No argument for me. Yep.
Yeah, I'd build on that as well. It's the correlation isn't causation. So saying that X amount of people who are narcissistic are also religious doesn't really tell much. But if you're teaching somebody that literally the entire universe was made for them, might kind of lead down a bad path, especially if they're predisposed to that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think we're aligned there. Like it can embolden a predisposition. It can like having religious systems, like structures, in a lot of ways can also exacerbate existing mental illnesses. Like when I made that video, I wasn't saying that religion and mental illness have 0 interaction points. That's not what I was saying, because it absolutely does. Absolutely does. But being religious is not a mental illness. That is just objectively the case. Yeah. So, but there's more nuance to it than that. Like yeah, I think that especially if you work your way up into a leadership role, yeah, for sure. If you have a narcissistic personality type, you can utilize that structure and leverage it to benefit you to the detriment of others in a multitude of dangerous and damaging ways. For sure.
I've been on the receiving end of that. It's not fun.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. Hey, I made it through. That's all that matters.
Yes, you're here with us now. That's what matters.
Glad I have been there. And hey, check out Dragon Ball Z when you get a chance. And Forrest, I love your videos. I'm an engineer myself. I'm a man of science.
Awesome.
I'm an electrical and mechanical engineer, and I love watching your stuff too. So.
My fiance is a mechanical engineer. That's fantastic.
I want to see more of you on TikTok.
Yes, most definitely.
Can't stop him.
Yeah, it's just
man, if we've tried. All right, Tony, thank you so much for calling. We'll let you go. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you, Tony.
Bye. All right, Forrest, we did it. We made it through.
It was an awesome show.
And I only had one full throttle emotional breakdown. That is a record.
Hey, man, it's. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about, how there's a disparity in civil rights here, and I think that was a really, really important thing to get out there. Personally, I think that pregnancies are they're caused by men, and you need sperm to get pregnant. And a woman can only have, so many pregnancies in a year. I could potentially get dozens of people pregnant every single day. If I had a pipette and some time, I could impregnate thousands of people. So really, we should be mandating vasectomies. Every single boy should get a vasectomy. They're reversible. And when you're at a certain age, if you were ready to have children, you should talk to your doctor with your partner. And if the doctor approves it, then you can have the vasectomy reversed, and then you can have children. And if you are pro-life and against abortion, and everything that I just said is grotesque and offensive to you, you might need to shut the fuck up about abortion, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. It's just whether or not a person has their own rights to their own body, and whether or not the government can be inside your body making choices. Oh my God, it's spicy. It's a spicy day for both of us.
Well, on that note, thank you for joining us today, everybody. I have been Shannon Q.
I'm Forrest Valkai.
And as always, everyone, help elevate the discourse. Mild nervous breakdowns are acceptable every once in a while. Bye.
Bye-bye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's setting up your business, what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your life.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.